Okay. So we're getting and so things like air handling 404, etc. We set all that stuff up here. So in our controller, we now need a details method to get that 404 to go away. So it's a good idea. Notice Visual Studio auto-generates this code. It also includes, for every method, it includes the URL path where that method gets called. And also which type of HTTP method is running. So in this case, I'm going to do the same. So set it up as store details. So we're going to return a view called details. Now we need to do two more things to get this page to actually load. What else do we need to do? So step one was creating the method in the controller. What else do we need to do before this method will actually run successfully? We made a change to our controller, so what do we need to do next after changing the controller? Yeah, we need to build it, and then we need to make a view with the same name. So we'll build our change, we'll recompile our DLL, so our DLL now has a store details method. And we'll go to our store We'll go to our views store, we'll add a view, which has to match the controller name, so we'll add a view called details, leave the rest of it. Empty template, and our existing layout page. So this should fix the 404 error we get when we click on rock, jazz, or blues. We've compiled. So now if I try any one of these, it's going to be slow for a minute because it's got to recache my server-side code. So the first request is slow. Now our details page loads, and then it runs quickly after that first request. So this is how we would go about creating a new page and then creating links to call that page in the application. Now our details view isn't quite complete though. If I click, I'm going to open up 3 tabs. I'll click each one of these links. That was when I clicked rock, that was when I clicked jazz, that was when I clicked blues. What's missing from our links? Right, each of them are calling this page, but in each case, the page is identical. We've lost what choice the user made. So if we want to show them data related to the specific type of music they clicked on, right now, we don't know what they clicked on. So we want to modify this link, and then we're also going to need to modify our details method so that when the details page loads, we know what the user clicked on. We're asking them to make a choice. We don't want to lose that choice when they go to the next page. We need to keep it. So I'm going to go back to index, and we're going to need to add some stuff to our action links. So the first thing we need, so notice there's 10 version of the action link method. We want to call this version, where the first 3 parameters are link text, method name, controller name. The 4th parameter here, group values. So any parameters we want to pass to the method. So here's how we do that. I'm going to specify a parameter called genre and set it equal to rock. So on the details page, we can evaluate this genre parameter. Now there's a fifth parameter here in this method that is not optional. We have a few choices. The last parameter represents any HTML attribute. So if we want to attach any CSS to this link. If we don't want to attach any CSS, we can just set that parameter as null. But it can't be empty. If we wanted to attach some CSS, we just attach a class attribute. So for example, this is a link. Maybe I'll just look for quickly. Maybe I want to use some link class that comes with Bootstrap. Let's see if maybe there's a class here. I don't really want a button. We'll see if there might be a class we might want to use that looks okay. Maybe I'll just leave it as null for now. I won't worry about it. So I'll just leave that parameter as null. So I won't modify. I'll check this out before I add the same code to the other links. We'll see what this does. So if I refresh now, my page looks the same. But now we're passing in the selection along to the page, which is what we want. So we want to do the same thing for our other two links. We won't bother passing in any HTML attributes.
You define a class. If you like what you do in Bootstrap, where you define multiple classes in that definition.
Yep, we could. Yep, so we're not limited to a single class. Well, all you need to do in that case, so it would be something like this. If we wanted a class, you'd say new @class equals. Then you could have A, B, C. You could attach multiple classes to that object that way. Same if we wanted multiple parameters here. We're only passing one. We could also put in, like ID equals 1. We just put in a comma if our method is going to take multiple parameters. We could do it that way. We'll just keep it like this.
Do that within the HTML aspect of it too. So if you want to add more than just class, you can also add ID.
Yep. Yes. So any HTML attributes you want to add, you can. So now, save my change and refresh. So now it passes in blues when I click blues, passes in jazz when I click jazz, passes in rock when I pick rock. So now our work on this page is done, but we need to modify both the details method and the details view, because right now the details method, it's taking this information in, but it just ignores it. It's not doing anything with those values. So let's go back to our controller. We're going to change what this looks like. So our details method needs to take a parameter. What data type are we passing to this method? Yeah, we're passing in a string called genre. So in our details view, we just want to print out that genre from the previous page. So we know and we can display what the user clicks on. It's always a good idea if we're asking the user to pick something and sending that data to a new page. It's probably a good idea to show that we got the right selection. So for this, we can use this view bag object. So this is accessible in both the controllers and the views. So we can set up a property called genre that takes the value from the URL. Whatever gets passed to this method is now available here. So we can save that. We've modified the controller method, so we need to compile before this change takes effect. So let's build. And now we'll go back to our details view. We've put the value that comes in the view bag. Now we can display that value on our details page. So in details, we're going to replace the title with viewbag.genre. And we're going to replace on line 7 the heading that says details with @viewbag.genre. We'll say albums. We don't actually have album data for today, but put on a little message. But at least the browser title and the heading on the page should show us whatever the user selected on the previous page. We need to make sure that we've built because we've changed the method. I think I've already built. Can't remember. We'll try it. Yes, it did build. I can see because it's slow. It's not loading right away. So when I click jazz, it prints the word jazz both in my browser title as well as in my page heading. Click blues. I see blues 3 places. I click rock. So we can use action link to load another page and also pass information to that page. What if I do this now? We've set our method to accept the string. If I hit enter and try and load details without passing in a value called genre in the URL, there's a couple of possibilities of what might happen. What could happen if I hit enter? Okay, we could get an error, right, saying that the string parameter has not been supplied. What would the other option be? Sorry? It could. So what would we expect to see on the details page in that case? Well, let's see. So it doesn't crash, but there's no value here, right? Our genre property is empty, so nothing gets displayed. Now, maybe we don't want to do this. Typically, if we have a details page, that details page is usually going to require some sort of parameter. So it might look something, you know, we might want this here. No, we may want this, or we may want. Oh, we didn't use a friendly URL today. We will eventually. We're just kind of doing this quick and dirty for today. So what should happen if we call details, but we have no information to pass to details? So we can't really load that view. There's a couple of different things we could do. What should we do you think, here if we have no genre value passed in? Okay, we could redirect. I could think of 2 places that it might make sense to take the user in this scenario. So they type this URL directly, but they don't pass in any information. So we can't load anything. what could we do in that scenario? Where could we redirect them to that might make sense? What do you think?
Store home page?
Okay, we could take them back here. That might make sense because this page gives them the choices that they need in order to get to that page successfully. So that's one possibility, is let's redirect. What would the other thing we could potentially show them be? Yeah, we could, which is basically what this page is.
No, I mean, type a URL directly to a link or something, not valid anymore.
Okay, that's not a bad idea. What would the other place? Give you a hint. There's a view already in the project, another view that got auto-generated we could take them to. If they try to go to a page where that page isn't going to work, where could we take them? It's showing up in Solution Explorer. They try to load a page and we don't really have any data to work with on that page. Yeah, we could take them, we could load the error view if we wanted to. Let's try both ways. Neither's wrong, right? It's just kind of a workflow question. That might be a question for our customer. Hey, if someone goes here and doesn't choose this, do you want us to take them back here to let them choose? Do you want to give them the error page? We can do either way. Let's set it up to go to the error page first, and then I'll show you how we have a couple of options for taking them to the home page. So one option here, first of all, let's check if genre is empty. We can just compare it to a null value. How do you suppose we would load the error page? Yep. But how do we get it to load the error page rather than the details view? Because by default, every method calls a view with the same name. Correct. You got it. So there's 8 versions of return view. And the 4th one is supply the name of the view as a string. So if we save and build now and call details without passing in a genre, it should load the error view, the default kind of the auto-generated error page that Visual Studio gives us. It would be a way of handling an anticipated problem without requiring an exception. So now if I go to store details, don't pass in any genre, we should get the generic error page that Visual Studio gives us. There we go. Now notice, even though error is in a different folder, we didn't have to specify the path. So the way that return view works, it can load any view in the current folder, so anything in the store, and if it doesn't find it in the store, it looks in shared. It won't look for views outside of those 2 folders. So the store controller can't load a view from home unless we actually specify the full path. So that's one way of handling this. We could return the error view. We could return the index view. In that case, that would be another possibility, right? Don't load, so if we have no genre, don't load details, return the view called index, which we have called up above. Probably, if we want to load the index view, which probably makes more sense, the error page isn't very helpful, doesn't let the user fix what they did wrong. Whereas taking the index view gives them the information they need so that they can give us the data we need. So I'll comment that out. So we have a couple of ways we could load the index. One option, which probably isn't recommended, is we could just write the code return view index. That loads the index view. The problem with doing that, in this case, it would work fine. The problem is many times our views need to first go and connect to the database and fetch data from the database in order to run. So if we're selecting, when we modify this page in a few weeks, the index method isn't just going to return the view. The first thing it's going to do is go to the database, get the list of genres, and then pass that list to the view. If we simply load the view down here, any code that needs to happen before the view loaded doesn't get executed. So instead of simply loading a view, we're actually better off to call the method. All the code runs in the method, and then the view gets loaded at the end. So instead of returning a view, we're going to return a different type of action result. This is called a redirect to action. So this means call the index method and let that method load the view or load whatever gets returned. This is probably a better approach than simply loading the index view. And we're going to use redirect to action a lot. So for example, when we start working with data, if we save a new record or update a record or delete a record, once we're done saving, we're typically going to use this exact code. Save the change to the database, but then let's leave the form and go back to the index page where we can either see our new record, see that our deleted record is gone, or see the record we updated has been changed in our index view. Our index views typically will be used to list all the data in a table where we'll have edit, delete links beside each record, and then a link at the top for creating a new one. So we're going to see this redirect to action frequently. We don't always need a view. Sometimes we just want to do some processing and take the user somewhere else. So I'll build one more time. I'll make sure these still work when I select the proper genre. Which they do. And now I want to make sure when I take out the genre, my redirection works and it brings me back here where I can pick. So for now, this method, our index method, it doesn't use the database, but it will. In a couple weeks, rather than us hard coding these links, we're going to take out what's here. And the first thing that's going to happen in this method is we're going to query the database, get the list of genres, maybe sort them alphabetically. And then we want to take that list, and when we call the view, we're going to hand it that list. And then instead of having a hard-coded set of links here, we're going to use a for each loop to print each one of these out. Not only are we going to print the name of the genre, we're going to use an action link so that each one of those will generate a link to the details. The user will click on a genre, and this page is then going to run a separate query. We're going to take the genre that comes in. We're going to go to the database. We're going to look up all the albums for that genre, get that list of albums, sort it into some kind of useful sort order, pass that data to the view. And again, our details view, we're going to have a similar thing. We're going to build a loop, have a loop, creating an HTML table where we can see all the albums for that genre, where we'll have links for adding, for editing, and for deleting. So that's, we'll be making changes to this page once we kind of get all that stuff wired up. So both of these redirect to action objects and view objects, they're child objects of action result. So when our method returns action result, it can return any of these things. It can return a view, it can return a redirection, it could even return JSON data. if we wanted to. Maybe we're building an API. So there is no front end. You call the method, we query the database, we get some data, and we just send back JSON data in an API. Again, that's part of what action result could handle. Anybody have any questions about anything we've done so far today? Oh, you guys good? Working? Great. Okay, I'll let you guys go. Have a great weekend. I will put all my code up on GitHub in case you need it. Okay. So next week, we're going to spend a fair bit of time. We're going to build some more complicated views and look at some of the other functions that come with the Razor syntax so that we get more familiar with those. And then we'll maybe make a mock model just for some pretend data. And the week after, in 2 weeks, we'll actually build real models, get them generated from our database, and start doing actual create, read, update, and delete with our SQL Server database. Okay. We'll also, I think, have a lab next week, most likely. Okay, be with you in just a moment.